Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other like-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is still off to a great start to the new year. We have a return guest. Max Furek is here to discuss his new publication, The Smurl Haunting. It seems we will be extending Halloween into the new year and other months. I have more people contacting me about, hey, got new book out. Hey, can you schedule me? So okay, so we got some new guests coming up in a couple weeks. Regular guests will be returning later this year, and they have new projects that should be out within the next few months. So just be patient. We're getting to them. So I'm also behind schedule with the move to the new studio. As you can tell, I got Spunky behind me. So I was told that by, we'll just say she's unnamed, that I'm not going to be able to continue to use the fossilized fish head anymore. So that's why I have this new studio. But anyhow, after a captivating talks with Max a few months ago about his Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, we'll be discussing haunted houses and exorcists tonight. Max is also an in-demand lecturer. The Butler Paranormal Conference from last year is an example. And you can learn more about Max by going to his website, maximfurek.com. Hey, Max, how you doing?
Hey, Mark, how's it going? Thank
fine.
you for the invitation, and I want to wish you a happy new year.
Oh, thank you. I hope you're having a great new year, and it will stay that way.
Yeah, let's hope. You never know. Life has its ups and downs, its twists and turns, but we roll with it and ride with it. But just a lot of exciting things happening in the world of the paranormal, and so it's just an exciting time with just a lot of new things happening, and I think a lot of maybe renewed interest. A lot of younger people stepping forward and saying, what's this all about? So, I'm like everybody else, Mark. I'm just fascinated by what the paranormal is, what it holds, what the mysteries are. And, so we all, are searching and looking, and whether it's cryptids or demons or flying saucers or whatever, so, I kind of think it's all the same. I think that, and hopefully at one point we're going to figure it out. So, that's what, why I'm here and what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's was part of my introduction. Is I get a whole bunch of people, telling me, "Hey, you got this new book coming out." Well, and a lot of the books do seem to have some kind of theme of, paranormal stuff. It seems like we'll have a another return guest talking about his re-release of his Kolchak book, and it's like, I'm sure you grew up watching that series.
Night Stalker. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's
he was a combination serious guy and bumbler, but that was comedic. I mean, it was a horror movie with a different take. I mean, I loved it. So even the way it started with the trailers and everything, with the wind blowing the sheets of paper over his desk, I mean, it was pretty cool. Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Yeah. So, so that that is setting the stage for Halloween themed shows going on for 2026, and I don't think anyone's going to be complaining about more discussions on Carl Kolchak. So, we're going to have good, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this with you tonight. He prepared me for my future.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so you also have had a career as a rock journalist, and you're you do incorporate in the Smurl haunting how a lot of the late 60s pop culture and the appearance of Black Sabbath kind of set the stage for us to be fans of the novel as well as the movie, the Amityville Horror. What was going on at that time with Rosemary's Baby, and how we got to where we are today?
Yeah, I use a term called apocalyptic awe, and I believe it's our means of dealing with the fear of the unknown, whether it's the apocalypse or just any kind of horror, demonology, all that. And we do it through a whole, just a cascade of songs and literature, of biblical writings, just everything that we do. We are able to take a look at that horror, like demonology, like possession, through art. And we're able to go and see that monster behind the door and see that creature under the bed. But with Rosemary's Baby, that was such a tremendous big hit with America. I mean, we loved this stuff, but it was a sort of a distasteful theme of demonic possession, and a mother's baby and all that. So, but yeah, it became a big screen success, and we had certainly Amityville Horror, but we had the Omen. And we had the Exorcist, like one by one, we started to have all of these films that are about taboo, forbidden topics, but they became mainstream. They became commercial. They became $1 million sellers at the box office and at the bookstore. So we found out that not only America, but the whole world had a taste, had a hunger for these themes. So no sooner does this start to evolve that we saw the presence of Ed and Lorraine Warren, Roman Catholic demonologists from Monroe, Connecticut, and they started to do their lectures. And there was sort of like an assault. We were being assaulted by the demonic, or being educated about the demonic through all these people. Certainly Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, put music to it. And so, the kids could dance to it and everything. And even the last concert that they did, it was a tribute. It made more money than did Farm Aid, and I think it was Fire Aid. But I mean, it was just amazing, showing that Ozzy Osbourne and his group still had the chops, still had the fans, and they still had the passion. This was pretty amazing. This was pretty telling. But yet, the story of demonic possession had been told to us in many different ways. Typically, though, with pop culture, but also with serious academics like Ed and Lorraine Warren. So Ed and Lorraine were the ambassadors. They were the pioneers of demonology, educating us as to what that is. They were equivalent to, say, over in Europe, the woman that did the same thing with witchcraft, and I'm blocking, Sybil Leek. So Sybil Leek taught the world about witchcraft only after, in England, they repealed this ban. They had a ban. If anybody practiced witchcraft, they could be punished, imprisoned. And when they repealed that ban in the 50s, Sybil Leek wrote this book about witchcraft, which opened up the doors. And a lot of people said, wait a second, this sounds like something I want to do. So they were taking a look at pre-Christian religions like paganism and like Wicca, and saying, this is something that I want to do. Because with paganism and Wicca, the intent is to utilize inherent powers that we have. Okay, so that we become the priests and the shamans. We're really a part of this religion, So it's more of an active participation, with the pagans and the Wiccans, as far while Christianity, and I would think that the other religions too, Hindu, Islam, Buddhism, are more of a participation type of religion, where you sit there and you listen to the sermon, and and maybe you respond, but nonetheless, Sybil Leek opened up those doors, and so all of these things became more recognized and more accessible, more well-known in the 60s and 70s, especially. And Rosemary's Baby, probably, and The Exorcist were the ones that really kicked it off big time. And then people started to say, well, what's this all about, with The Exorcist? And they realized that there was a story. Something happened in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Something happened in Georgetown where there was an exorcism performed, and the young man may have had Tourette's syndrome, but the story was based on some reality that was happening there. So again, we were educated, probably, I think The Exorcist was maybe 1968. Or that was Rosemary's Baby, but then 68 on, we started to see the floodgates opened, The Omen, all these motion pictures about demonology. We were insatiable, and they made lots of money at the box office, and that's the key. So Hollywood realized that they had a keeper here, and it's been like that ever since. And just take a look at the Conjuring franchise, 9 motion pictures worth $2.7 billion net. That's net. And the last one, of course, Conjuring Last Rites, which is my book is all about the Smurl haunting. Conjuring Last Rites was number 9 in the franchise. And it's about the West Pittston, Pennsylvania haunting that took place in the 1980s. That came out September 5th, 2025. My book came out a lot earlier than that. And I had been writing about the Smurl haunting. I wrote about that in the Collegian Hoodoo, which was my book from 2023. So, I mean, I did not, plagiarize or piggyback on The Conjuring, but however, my book came out just before the Conjuring movie came out, and that was part of that was because my publisher thought, let's just jump on this and see if we can, ride the coattails to, to wherever. So that part was a marketing strategy. But the other thing was, I mean, we wrote it before, the Conjuring came out, and to that end, the Conjuring movie was a fictitious rendition of the Smurl haunting. Only one element of truth that I could identify, and maybe three variables that had any kind of validity to them, but everything else was just fictionalized. And I enjoyed it, but but it certainly wasn't truthful. So,
okay, well, yeah, that's the creative license that the director had.
Yeah, I agree, creative license, but I call it creative conjuring because they had Judy Warren, the daughter of Ed and Lorraine, as the protagonist. She was the one that the demon had the target on, was stalking Judy Warren. Well, in reality, Judy Warren never stepped foot in the Smurl house, as far as I know. So they just wrote this into the script, and it became about Judy Warren. And I would suspect that there will be additional Conjuring movies starring Judy Warren, just because they have another player now. But it wasn't true. She was never there. But that's what the movie was all about. So,
but I guess Ed and Lorraine became more of household names after what maybe the Amityville
right.
Series became more popularized. But with since we were just talking about the artistic license that studio has, you know the difference because you've actually met and worked with Ed and Lorraine. Throughout your book, you do give us information about their faith. It was they were not hoaxers. So, can you tell us a little bit about who they were since you knew them?
Yeah, and so I felt, when I wrote the book, I felt that it was something was being channeled through me because it was just too easy to write this book. For one, West Pittston, Pennsylvania was in my backyard. I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, and I know you got coal down on West Virginia, but we're
Yep.
we're anthracite coal. We're hard scrabble people. So that's who we are. But West Pittston is in that area, and I went up there and frequented the site numerous times. Talked to the neighbors, took pictures, and all that. There was a book written called The Haunted, and it was about the Smurl haunting in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. Bob Curran wrote it. It was co-written by Ed and Lorraine Warren and Jack and Janet Smurl. So I heard that Ed and Lorraine were going to be in a touristy place called Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. So I wrote to the owner of the Victorian Theater, got permission to be there to interview him. And I was hanging out with Ed and Lorraine Warren. It was July, hot, steamy day in July 1988. were hanging out on the sidewalks. I mean, I listened to their presentations, these PowerPoint presentations that were really sort of old school and hokey. And I mean, they were, in retrospect, that's what they were. I guess maybe at the time they were more cutting edge, but I would ask them questions about demonology and how they did battle with the demons and what their power was and all that. I kept in touch with them over the years, and Lorraine was an animal lover. She had a pet rooster that she called Einstein, and I would call mainly to talk to Ed. And you could hear the rooster in the background, but they were very good to me. I think they respected me. I think they appreciated my energy and my passion, and they walked me through a lot of this stuff. And I believe that they were friends and mentors. And so, they told me that they used their Christianity as a base. That was their foundation to do battle with the creatures. And the maxim seems to be that the power of Satan is great, but the power of God is greater. And so, Ed said that he would go and do demonic battle, invoking the image of Jesus Christ, of Saint Michael the Archangel, and of Padre Pio. And that's what he did. He would use holy water in the crucifix. He would have things that he would read out. He would try to go and cleanse the house. He was sort of what I would call an amateur exorcist, because a lot of his attempts at exorcism didn't prove to be fruitful. For example, a good example was in the Smurl house, and Ed went there and tried to do some exorcist. As Ed had Catholic priests came over, and they spent the night there listening for things. They blessed the house. They did exorcisms, and nothing happened. So Ed and Janet Smurl had seen the Warrens on TV. So Janet Smurl from West Pittston, Pennsylvania, reached out to Lorraine Warren from Connecticut and told her about their plight. So the Warrens came down. They came down there to West Pittston. I think it might have been about 4 times when they spent time in the house. And Ed said that whatever it is, I don't care what you call it, a demon, a ghost, a spook, there's something that is infesting this house. And but Ed wasn't able to get rid of it, so he brought in Father Robert McKenna, who was what's called a rogue priest. He was a Catholic priest that believed in the earlier tradition of Catholicism before Pope John the 23rd had Vatican II. And for, if you're a Catholic, the Vatican II, I believe in the 1960s, was the church's attempt to modernize the church and to be in touch more with other religions, whether, Jewish or Islamic, also to reach out to the communist and the Marxism, just to have a friendship, a rapport. So that's what he did. But Robert McKenna, who was invited to come to the Smurl house, he revoked Vatican II, and he was what's called a rogue priest. He set up his own church with his own, ancient Catholic dictate. So that's what he did. Anyway, McKinnon came to the Smurl haunting and did 3 exorcisms, and it didn't work. So, Ed tried it, the local priest tried it, and then finally there was a guy named Bishop Timlin from the Scranton Diocese, and he brought in Father Trabold from New York. And Father Trabold, it took him 4 times, and he finally was able to cleanse the house, but 4 times. But the first time, he didn't think that it was really haunted, or possessed, infested. He thought, in northeastern Pennsylvania, I don't know how it is down in West Virginia, but in northeastern Pennsylvania, there's a lot of sinkholes. There's a lot of mine subsidence because, you've got coal mines crisscrossing these towns and these cities. Right. So every now and then it floods and it sinks down. So Trabold thought that maybe what he was hearing was that. But then that was the first time. Then he came back the second time, and he was hearing things. And when you talk about infestation, when you talk about haunting, you're talking about knocks and grunts and smells and chills, rooms that are heated that are 30 to 50 degrees. You're talking about all this weird stuff, noises, profanities. And that's what the Smurls dealt with a little bit at a time, until the dog, the German Shepherd, Simon, was levitated and flung across the room, until Jack Smurl was raped by a female demon, a succubus, and Janet Smurl claimed that she was assaulted by a incubus, a male demon. So that is important to me because it shows that the Smurl haunting was one of the most violent, one of the most dramatic hauntings that we've seen. I mean, I think more so than Amityville or the Hindsdale House or the damn Wells House. And because of that, I think because they were devout Christians, that they had a mark on their back. I think that the devil was out to get them. And, Mark, I've been asked a million times, why the Smurls? Why not any of the other Catholic families in West Pittston, Pennsylvania? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the devil works or thinks. I mean, I don't know. But it happened to be the Smurls that I believe were targeted and infested and raped. So, call it what you will, but the Smurl haunting was a very violent, and those attacks were personal.
Well, there were, like the next door neighbors were eyewitnesses to some stuff.
Go ahead.
So this isn't just someone, making up stuff. With multiple eyewitnesses, seeing, UFOs or the levitating dog, or hearing sounds. You have to take that seriously.
Well, yeah, and like you said, they lived in a duplex with Jack Smurl's parents. So the parents heard things, but other neighbors heard things. They heard screams. The one neighbor was calling Janet Smurl, and here they went camping, but a little girl picked up the phone and answered. The one of the neighbors heard that. I mean, that's pretty weird. And we know that with demonic infestation, it can infest and possess people, places, or things. And it's this demon or demons seem to have stalked the Smurls when they went on this camping expedition, because a lot of really bizarre paranormal things happened there. So it took a while before finally, this house was cleansed. And before it was even cleansed, the Smurls couldn't take anymore. They left. They moved to another location. And but since then, the new tenants of the house have reported nothing. But again, we know that it's haunted when you're awaken in the dead of night with knocks and smells and screams and all these weird paranormal things. So yeah, I believe the truth. But here's the thing too. One reason why I didn't personally interview the Smurl family was because they were under attack. They were under demonic attack, according to Lorraine Warren, by at least 4 spirit entities. They were being attacked by the paparazzi. Janet Smurl had received hundreds of phone calls from the paparazzi, from news reporters from around the world requesting interviews. Hundreds. I mean, they were relentless. And then the other thing was the public that just wasn't warm and fuzzy. They weren't neighborly. They weren't Christian. They weren't supportive. They kept on saying that Jack and Janet were just trying to make money from this hoax, that it was all a hoax. So that was pretty much what they were dealing with. And really, thank God that they had their family for support and that they had the church, because they were very devout church members. And I believe that saw them through these really tough times. So, but can you imagine? I mean, uh, the courage it would take for a guy to say, that he was raped by a female demon. Us guys don't do that. We're macho and we're brave and we're not weak like that. And, so for him
Right.
to say that I thought was a courageous thing to say. I mean, realizing the ridicule that he was going to take, and it's happens like this all the time. I talk about the universal rule of 90, that 30% of the people are going to believe you, 30% are going to say, no, you're a liar, and 30% of the people don't care either way. 30, 30, and 30. So, take your pick. I mean, you have your supporters and then you have your naysayers and critics. And certainly the Smurls had their critics, and so did Ed and Lorraine Warren. There are many, many people that claimed that they were con artists and frauds and everything else. As a matter of fact, even today, a lot of people, are very critical of them. And Mark, one reason for that is because they were commercially successful. They were making lots of money on the college circuit. They were making somewhere like $5,000 per college appearance, and they made close to 1,000 of these appearances. They were on all the talk shows. They were co-writers. Actually, they had their names at the top of these books, but all these books that were attributed to them were actually written by ghost writers. But because Ed and Lorraine had the name, the notoriety, they would put their
Right.
names there at the top. So they had their people. It's a tough road. Everything's okay in the community, in the neighborhood, until you start getting some kind of attention, whether it's good or bad, and then they pile on. And that's what happened with the Smurls. That's what happened with the Warrens. And it was a town without pity. And by the same token, with the Hindsdale House in New York State, it was the Dandy family that was they were being blamed for being devil worshippers, and all of the things that were happening in the Hindsdale House, the Dandy House, knives being thrown at them, just coming out of them, and just all kinds of horrible infestations. And the neighbors didn't believe a word of it. They thought that the dandies were worshiping the devil. So, on top of the trauma, the PTSD, everything that you were dealing with, you have a neighborhood that didn't come together in support. It was really with the Dandy family. It was a town without pity. But the Smurls and the Dandies, two different places, but pretty much the same thing was happening. A haunted house, demonic possession, and neighbors that were very, very skeptical.
Well, and you mentioned the Smurls' close ties to their local church. At Amityville, there was a lot of religious statues, icons around the perimeter of the yard. They were outside.
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting points that you bring up is even though you go to church or you have some statue of Jesus near the sundial in the backyard. Why are these homes or people targeted? I think that's interesting. And in a couple weeks, when your buddy is a guest, Dean, we're going to get into the statuary inside his fictitious after hours bar. So we are going to be having more discussions about why do you have hauntings when you would think that such imagery would repel the demons.
Well, with Amityville, the demon, call him what you will. He was a sociopath, but Ronnie DeFeo Jr., he was 23 years old. He was doing methamphetamine. He was doing heroin. He was prescribed Thorazine. He was a walking zombie. He was just a horrible kid. Took a rifle, fired 2 shots into his mother, 2 shots into his father. Then he killed his 2 sisters and his 2 brothers. So 6 people that he killed, and he claimed that he was possessed by a demon. And what was interesting was that they had a trial, and there was a book called High Hopes. It was what they called this house on Long Island, in Amityville. When the DeFeos bought it, it was already christened High Hopes. They had a sign there, and yeah, they had. I think there was statues of the Blessed Virgin Mary and maybe some other things, some angels there. But Ronnie DeFeo claimed that he was possessed by a demon, and the prosecution had to prove that it wasn't a demon, but that Ronnie DeFeo had a personality disorder, that he had no empathy for people, especially his family, and that he needed immediate gratification. So he snapped. He had a whole lot of different reasons, talking about these murders. I mean, he was lying outside of his teeth, but they found him guilty. And imagine how that would have been if a jury of 12 people would have found Ronnie DeFeo Jr. Possessed by a demon. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened in the American judicial system, but it's amazing how this. And then the other thing too is, doesn't matter if you believe he was possessed by a demon, or if he was just a really mixed up and sick young man. But Amityville resonated more than anything else that we've seen, more than Hindsdale House and the Smurl House. It's the Amityville Horror, the books and the motion pictures that just won't stop. I mean, have been more motion pictures about this, and the books. Just Google books about the Amityville Horror, and you'll see tons and tons of books. And the reason for that is it's a cottage industry. People want to read about this, and that's because this is a modern day version of Cain and Abel. This is something that we just can't wrap our arms around. I mean, how could an affluent kid, Ronnie DeFeo, who would drive brand new cars, his dad had a dealership, he would walk around with thousands of dollars in his pockets, had all the girlfriends that he could, that he needed. And, but he had this hatred that just manifested and took over and consumed him. And on that night, he killed his entire family. As far as I know, and I've read High Hopes. I read High Hopes. I read the Amityville Horror twice. When I was researching the Smurl House, I read it again, and it wasn't really a good book. And the reason for that, again, I mean, as a published author, I'm not taking shots at Jay Anston, who wrote the book, but the reason it wasn't very good was because Jay Anston wrote the Amityville Horror based on 45 hours of tape recordings from George and Kathy Lutz. They're the ones who bought the Amityville Horror, the High Hopes, for $80,000, which was a steal. $80,000, moved out in there, and then moved out after, I think it was 28 days. So they believe that they were forced out by demons. All kinds of crazy things were happening with flies and the talking pig and just all kinds of weird stuff. Not to the extent of the Smurl haunting, not physical assaults and all that, but nonetheless, they put all of their recollections onto tape, and it was Jay Anston who transcribed those tapes into the Amityville Horror, which was a bestseller, which led to a motion picture with James Brolin, and I'm trying to picture her, but anyway, it was a great motion picture. And then there were sequels, and there were made-for-TV movies and everything. So, I mean, Amityville, people are making money. A lot of people, the last thing a lot of people remember about Amityville, the last thing that's in their head was that the lawyer, George and Kathy Lutz's lawyer, claimed that he put together the Amityville Horror after drinking a couple of bottles of wine, that him and George Lutz put it together, and it was a hoax. Now, he said that, and he wrote a book about it, and then and that made money, because anything that you write about Amityville made money. I don't believe it was true. I believe that he was a hoaxer, and he was just saying that just to fan the flames and just keep this thing going. So, believe what you will, but I've, followed the Amityville. I've talked about it. I've lectured about it, and it's just like an amazing American horror story. It's straight out of the Bible. It's just like, again, it's that's horrific, and we still can't figure out why he did that. We never got a clear-cut answer from Butch DeFeo, the kid.
Okay, well, and speaking of other unexplained events, you go into the Wells house. You already mentioned it briefly mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah, they call it the damned Wells house. Yeah, they believe that was damned because there was a voodoo curse. They were hearing noises, and the one renter got a sledgehammer and smashed down the wall, and he found chicken bones and the crosses and all that. He believed there was a voodoo curse placed on the original owner. So that what was happening, in the house.
Yeah, it's so how. Well, I think you're bringing together a lot of really interesting points. Is how are these homes becoming haunted if, like the original owner of the Wells house, didn't realize that like the voodoo stuff was hidden in the wall. You get the angel statue. I was wrong about you corrected me about the angel statuary outside of the Amityville. The Smurls were, family of faith. So how are they being targeted, or how are the demons making their way without the people knowing about it?
Yeah, good question. A lot of us ask, how do people get possessed, or how do houses become infested? And I think with possession, there's a sequence: temptation, infestation, obsession, and then possession. There's a claim that Christians can't become possessed, but we've heard that, but nobody believes that. I think anybody could become possessed, but I think that the means of that is there's a bunch of ways that a family or a person could be targeted and could be possessed. For example, I believe that with the Smurls, they were targeted because of their religious beliefs. I believe that the devil had a target on their back, and the devil wanted to take them down, score more points, be more satisfied with taking down somebody who's devoted their life to the Lord. So that's one way. There could have been a curse with the Wells house. That voodoo curse was probably somebody that, if that's true, somebody that put a curse on the original owner, Lanning, and his name was Mr. Lanning, and they put it there. And just many, many hardships happened to that house: suicides, homicides, and accidents. Just too many, that you would think that would defy the actual probability, with the Wells house. So you have somebody putting a curse on you. You have the demonic thing. If individuals within the house are playing around with things like Ouija boards, seances, tarot cards, fortune tellers, these could be possible portals to the forbidden, and they may open up doorways, to the netherworld. And we don't know. We don't think that the Smurl children and there were two of them at the time. We don't think that they were dabbling in that. They were good Christians, but again, these were teenagers. And again, that has been suggested, but there's no proof about that. But that might have been one way. And then I think that with the temptation, if people are mentally ill, if they're addicted, if they're traumatized, have a very low sense of self-esteem, or if they're children, I think they are more vulnerable to these demonic energies. So again, we did have some children there at the Smurl house, but I don't, you talked about the Amityville house. The Smurl house was just filled with crucifixes and holy water and, all of that. I mean, so they had all of those, pictures of Padre Pio and Jesus Christ. So, certainly their house had been blessed, there's many ways that these demonic, entities can manifest, and we don't know. But Lorraine felt that with the Smurl haunting, that there was a female demon that was in charge, and there were 3 lesser spirits that were doing, I guess, the so-called dirty work, maybe shaking the house and making noises and doing all kinds of, just crazy things. Probably the female, the succubus, was the one that assaulted, raped Jack Smurl. But Lorraine felt that there were 4 entities there. The one was sort of the gang leader or the puppet master, and manipulating these other lesser spirits to do the demon's bidding. So that was Lorraine's theory.
Interesting. Okay, so when you're covering many of these examples in your book, you also introduce Father Trabold.
Yes.
And he was a friend of yours. So you?
No, I never met him.
Oh.
I heard about him, and what I did was, if I may, he was the hero of the Smurl haunting. He was the one that cleansed the house after 4 attempts. But in the book The Haunted by Bob Curran and Ed and Lorraine Warren, they never mentioned him, because that book came out in 1988, and I believe Father Trabold did those cleansings after that book was published, and so he never got his due as he should have. And I talk about him extensively in my book, The Smurl Haunting. And that book, by the way, I guess you've read it, right? The Smurl Haunting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting my questions from.
No, okay, no, I'm delighted, I'm honored.
In another page.
I did not talk about the Smurl haunting until like maybe in the middle of the book. But what I did was I compared and contrasted the Smurl haunting with Amityville, the Wells House, Hindsdale, all these other infamous haunted houses, just to compare and contrast, to see if there was any commonality or any differences. And there are, there certainly are. Certainly, Amityville's making money, and now I guess the Conjuring Last Rites is trying to make money with Smurl haunting. But I also talked about the Catholic rite of exorcism, and to my knowledge, Protestant denominations have sort of let that go. I think they stopped doing that maybe around the 1600s. And and I believe, again, I don't quote me, but I think that the Protestant way to deal with this is just to go directly to God. With the Catholics, you have your priests and you have the saints, so you have like a little team there of to do battle. So we got our Justice League of America. So I think that's the way it is. But I talk extensively about these famous exorcists, throughout history. And I start off with Jesus Christ. One of the first miracles that Christ did was an exorcist. an exorcism, and he taught his disciples how to do that. They could also cast out demons if they do it in the name of Christ and in his spirit. So that's the way it is done. And so anyway, the exorcisms and casting out of the demons are pretty prevalent in the Bible. It's nothing, and it's not anything new. We've heard this quite a few times. So,
well,
but
no, I was just going to say, in the Exorcist movie, the power of Christ compels you. That's actually, rooted in the Bible.
Yeah. And supposedly, if you like Ed Warren would say, I command thee in the name of Saint Michael the Archangel to show thyself, or to say they're your name, So he would do that, but Ed would evoke, these saints, Jesus Christ and Saint Michael the Archangel. Padre Pio would evoke the Blessed Mother. He said that and he said this too. He said that the power of Satan is great, but I go to the Blessed Mother for my strength. So again, these Catholics tend to have these saints that they go to, that they lean on, maybe as an intermediary between them and the Lord. But it's all about the Lord. It's the Lord has the power, has the final say, and that's just the way it is. all things through God.
Okay. What? Let's see. What?
These are good questions, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah. There's. You got me. This field's not like my forte. And I think it's interesting. I don't. I would just like to know. One of the things that like with doing the podcasts is, okay. I think there are things that need viewers and people like me would just like to know. What am I dealing with in this kind of situation? Well, other shows might be taking it more towards like promoting things that I just kind of don't want to go into, but at least having an understanding of like what are the principalities of the air. Okay, I think that's valid, without crossing over into other categories. But I think you do bring out all kinds of interesting points, like why in the Smurl case, why was there a lull from?
Oh yeah.
Is what's going on? There was an owner or a new renter in the same house. Why wasn't she targeted like the previous family?
Yeah. I when I get asked that question, I don't know how the devil thinks. I don't know. I don't dance with the devil. I don't know. But you said, the first thing you said, there was this gap where nothing was happening with the Smurls, and that was in the book. That, I mean, it's just like a dead silence, dead space, like the calm before the storm. So I don't know. They experienced that. Not all of the people that moved into that house, experienced anything. But again, with those attachments, demonic energies can do the attachments to certain individuals for different reasons. And if they're provoked, or if they're vulnerable. And so, I think that maybe, Jack Smurl might have had some sort of an attachment that he had to deal with and finally get rid of. But that's pretty much how it works. With the when you were out there at the paranormal 2025 Butler Paranormal Conference, there was a guy there named I'm trying to think. He was the ghost hunter. Jim. His name was Jim, and he showed the pictures to the psychic Vincent sisters of him being mauled by a demon. The sisters believed that there was an attachment. This guy Jim would go into these abandoned mental institutions and prisons and be looking for spirits and demons. And he believed that he found one and brought it home to his home in Hermitage, Pennsylvania. And he showed, you were there, Mark, because that's the first time I met you, but that was, he showed those pictures to me and to Suzanne and Jean Vincent. And they were horrific. I mean, I couldn't believe what he was showing us, but he claimed that he had been attacked by this female demon while he was home. So that was, that was a local event that happened, in our backyard. So as far as I was concerned, that was pretty much the high point of that paranormal conference, because, when does that happen? I mean, that looked to me like proof positive. Again, when you talk about cryptids, whether it's Dogman or Bigfoot, when you talk about flying saucers, and when you talk about demonology, I think there's more proof of demonology and hauntings and possession with demons and than there are with cryptids and flying saucers. Given the Patterson Gimlin film, as the one, Holy Grail, and also the 2014 Nimitz UAP video. Those are I think are legitimate. But other than that, there's not a whole lot that we could hang our hat on. With demonology, there seems to be a lot more. And in my book, I have a chapter called The 2%. And Father Amorth, who was the Vatican's chief exorcist, he did thousands of exorcisms. He believed that whenever somebody presents themselves as being possessed, the Catholic Church has to determine whether or not this is an actual possession or if it's a mental illness, like schizophrenia or Tourette syndrome or bipolar, any of those. And Father Amorth said that only 2% of these cases that they deal with are actual demonic possession, 2%. So in my book, The Smurl Hunting, I have a chapter called The 2%, where we investigate that and look at it. But I looked at my book just before our interview tonight, and I like it. I mean, a lot of times us authors don't like our work, and we say, I could have done this better or whatever, I like it too. Stand by it, and I think that it's a comprehensive look at demonology and exorcism, and looking at the Smurl house as the Smurl hunting as the epicenter, and just having everything go around it. So I think it turned out well, and it's being reviewed well. And my next book, the book I'm working on now, is called The Scream of the Haunted House, and that takes the Smurl house a step further and gets a bit deeper. So this is going to blow the lid off of the pot. So it's I'm really into it. I've been working hard on it. So hope to have that published later this year.
Okay. So we'll have you back later this year to cover that. And
yeah, sure.
We will continue the Halloween theme. I don't know, around could be Halloween, could be August, September.
Yeah.
Who cares? It just it just seems like that's the theme that a lot of people are working on. That
That's when the veil between the living and dead is thinner, right? As they say.
Like the Evans City Cemetery.
Oh yeah, been there. Yeah, great. Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the mayor of Evans City, Zohan, I believe, offered to remarry me and my wife at the chapel, but we had to come back to do that. But he offered to do that. Yeah. So.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if people know, but Butler, Pennsylvania, where they had the paranormal conference, that's where Evan City is. In Butler County, that's where they shot Night of the Living Dead, one of the best horror movies, one of the best zombie movies of all time. You watch the first 10 minutes of that and tell me that's not just like perfect. The car, the up and down, the black and white. I mean, the music. Just awesome. It's good.
Yeah, the chapel's still there, just like it is. When Barbara starts the car without the keys and starts going down. Not the nightlight Barbara, the Night of the Living Dead one.
Barbara's listening. You better watch her.
Yeah. But that chapel's still there.
Barbara, they're coming to you. That was just so good though. Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually really cool to be there at the cemetery. See, where the car makes the right hand turn and goes up the road. Yeah, it's all there, and then you get where everything was filmed.
Yeah.
And I've spoke about this when Boone was a guest, but where George unpacked all the cameras and lights and shot the opening scenes. It's all just like right there in a very compacted area.
Sure, yeah.
And just put everything back in the car and go to the next shot. But it's all the Blair tombstones are right there next to where Barbara knelt down at her parents' grave.
Yeah, that was so good. Yeah. Before we went there, we went to the Kecksburg UFO Festival, and then we went up to the Monroeville Night of the Living Dead Museum, and then we drove through downtown Pittsburgh, which was a real blast. I mean, it was fun. It was a nice city to go through, and then we went up to Evan City and met Dean there, and he gave us the guided tour. But that was great. That was when was that? A couple years ago. That was our paranormal vacation. That was pretty neat. So.
Yeah, how did you like the Monroeville Mall museum?
I liked it. I mean, it was they could have done a little bit better job, but they were having a sale, and a lot of the artifacts they were selling downstairs. It was like an auction thing, but there were a whole lot of things there. I mean, stills from the motion pictures, and a lot of the just Pittsburgh-based gore. I'm trying to think of the name of the guy that did Buckets of Blood, and George Romero sort of followed him. I think he mentored George Romero a little bit, with Romero, who was a transplant from New York, maybe from Manhattan. But I mean, I think Pittsburgh was the ideal location for some of these things. And even with Cormac McCarthy's The Road, the classic apocalyptic film, book about a father and son, and in a wheelbarrow, and the father has a gun with maybe one bullet, and in case the zombies come, he has one bullet to kill his son, so his son doesn't have to go and deal with any of this. He was going to sacrifice his son, but that was shot outside of Pittsburgh, and that was just a tremendous place. I mean, I love that area. The Chestnut Ridge, that 100-mile stretch from Pittsburgh down to West Virginia.
Morgantown.
More weird things. I mean, talking about cryptids and UFOs than any place else. Kecksburg is in there, and so I don't know what that is, but just a lot of craziness going on there. I have an article in the latest issue of Fate magazine. That's the Bible of the paranormal, and Phyllis Galdi, and it's on the article's on Chestnut Ridge. So talk a little bit about Stan Gordon. He's our
Oh
go-to
yeah,
guy. Stan was there at the Butler Paranormal.
yeah.
Uh,
He he uh uh he he he's always been very nice to me. I think he's a very informative speaker. I've you know, had maybe about 3 or 4 interactions with him
mhm,
for they were kind of sustained talks, plus him being a guest,
mhm.
and I I I really enjoy his work. The Kecksburg,
Video.
well, yeah, and the the bar where they have the merch stuff, and you can see the replica. It's a very interesting story.
Uh-huh.
I did. You hear all different kinds of points of view on it, but I think Stan has done a interesting job of just asking, uh, what was it?
Mhm. And Stan's claim to fame was that he seemed to be the first guy there. I mean, as far as the first researcher documenting, writing about it, so he was there with Kecksburg and then everything else. But Stan's sort of like the keeper of the key. He writes, he documents all this stuff. And I'll give you an example. I don't know how much more time we have, but back home, my neighbor had seen 2 Bigfoot creatures. A cinnamon colored one and a black one. One was larger than the other. And I asked this guy, Joe, several times what they were like. And he said that they walked like humans. They looked at him, not that they were afraid, but they were curious. And then they walked away. And this guy, Joe, showed me exactly where they were. I went there looking for tracks and I couldn't find any. I took some pictures, what I thought was a track. I sent it to Stan Gordon. And then I gave Stan Joe's contact information. So Stan wrote it up as a report and he attributed it to me, because I had given him that contact information. But it was, that's how Stan Gordon works. So his books are just a collection of things like Farmer and Mrs. Brown went to the barn at 6 o'clock in the evening to feed the cow, and there they saw the flying saucer and 2 Bigfoot. And he'll write things like that, who, what, when, where, and where. And he writes sort of like a scientist. And and if you're looking for that what I would call scientific documentation, I mean, his books like what is it, the Invisible Cryptids or whatever, you know,
Invaders.
yeah, Invisible Invaders, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's it.
yeah, talks all about that. So anyway, but we're fortunate to have somebody like Stan in Western Pennsylvania, fortunate to have somebody like you in West Virginia, and we have these guys that are just keeping the mission going, and the dialogue going. So with me, somebody asked me like, what do I want to do to this field? And I think if I could just make a contribution, and you had mentioned this a while back, but if I could just help to define what this paranormal is, just give it some boundaries, and that's what I want to be known for. So again, that's what I would like to do, because nobody knows. We're trying to figure out about saucers and Bigfoot and demons and all that, and we really don't know. I mean, we have a lot of guesses.
Well, that's with all the shows that Barbara and I have done on ancient history. It's like she's even written about it in before Roswell. Going back to caveman times. Covering all the mounds in the Ohio Valley. I think there's just always been, that interest in where do you go after you're done with this life. And, you get some of the interpretations of why some of the burials in the mounds, the person might have a huge rock was put on their waist. Is that to keep them pinned down because they were had some unsavory traits during lifetime?
Oh, okay. That's a good theory. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I've read that. And you do get those occasional uh really odd kind of burials where the researcher throws out that possibility. But I think that's just part of the we're going back a couple thousand years, but that's it'd be contemporary with Jesus's time. What he's the putting the casting the demons into the pigs.
Right.
That's some pretty weird stuff
Yeah.
as well. So there's I I think it's just interesting to ponder some of those ideas. What we don't know what was going on. We don't really know, but those couple examples are about contemporary.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what we do. Man searches for meaning. After survival, after the food and the water and the shelter and the group affiliation, we try to figure it out. We try to figure out our place in the world, in the universe, and what it all means. Is there life after death? Why are we here? And all this. What you were saying before about putting the rock on the corpse. Back home in northeastern Pennsylvania, we have a couple of Victorian cages in cemeteries, and they're either there to keep grave robbers from robbing the body, or they're there to keep the dead person from waking up and then coming into the real world. They're cages, and so
Oh,
we're not quite sure what they were used for, but they're very ornate. And the belief is that it was only the wealthy people that could afford these special cages. So and we got a
yeah.
bunch of them there. So
Well, that's just a variation of being weighed down with a huge
yeah, yeah,
rock.
exactly.
So, what do we? Uh, how do we interpret that? Is it keep people out or keep the dead in?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, or even with the Egyptians, we know that they would
yeah.
prepare them for the afterlife. They would bathe them and wrap them and put all the things there, wonderful things, and then put them in the tombs, elaborate tombs, and so they. So I think the Egyptians celebrated the afterlife. I think that in Mexico, with the Day of the Dead, they
Mhm.
celebrate the people that have departed. And they will go to the tombstone and they'll give them if they like tequila, they'll give them a bottle of tequila or whatever it was. They'll give them presents on the Day of the Dead. So, I think a lot of these other uh, cultures, are maybe more aware of that than we are. Mark, I see a question here. Do a short section on Annabelle. Uh,
Yeah, you
and
cover that.
yeah, okay, yeah. Well, in the Smurl haunting, I do have I talk about that. And what was interesting is, I had talked earlier that I felt that something channeled through me to write this book. And on July 11th, 2025, my wife and I went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to see Annabelle. And Annabelle was on a multi-city tour on the Devils on the Run tour. And what Tony Spira, that was Ed and Lorraine Warren's son-in-law. He took Annabelle to San Antonio, to New Orleans, to West Virginia, the penitentiary. I think, was that Moundsville? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's down that way, a few miles.
Yeah, and then Gettysburg. We saw Annabelle on Friday, July the 11th, and that's where I met Dan Rivera. He was the chief Annabelle handler. He was a Methodist guy that converted to Catholicism. And much like Ed Warren, he was talking about his Christian faith and how this guy gets him through. And a lot of these guys believe that, if you have a solid Christian foundation, you can, fight evil. You can fight these demons, okay? And that's where they start. And that's what he talked a lot about that. Dan agreed to do an interview with me on Monday, July the 14th. And I was telling him I'm writing this book about the Smurl haunting and all that. So he agreed to do that. And what happened was Dan died the day before. Dan Rivera, and I was one of the last paranormal researchers to talk to me, but he died the day before we were going to have the interview. They did an autopsy. The coroner said that it was he died of natural causes because he had cardiac issues. But other people, like Ed and Lorraine Warren's grandson, Chris McKinnell, believed that Annabelle had something to do with it. And more than anything else, the psychic Vincent sisters, and they're quoted extensively in the Smurl haunting, claim that Annabelle had everything to do with it because Annabelle wore down Dan Rivera, and eventually he died from her demonic energies. And one other thing too, if anybody, before this gets any more controversial, I want to say that Lorraine Warren did not want Annabelle to be taken out of the Monroe Occult Museum, or the Warren Occult Museum. She wanted it to stay there in Monroe, Connecticut, and they decided to take it out there. And why did they do that? Well, in Gettysburg, the Gettysburg paper, after he died, quoted 1,260 people over the 3 days paid $40 each to see Annabelle. That was something like, give or take, $50,000. The whole take for San Antonio, New Orleans, West Virginia, and Gettysburg was somewhere around, again, give or take, $200,000. So, who's zooming who's making money and who's not. And, and I don't want to hear anything from Tony Spira or the New England Society for Psychic Research that, what they're doing is for educational purposes. It's obvious that they're doing it to make money, and they are making money. They're making a lot of money. So, say what you will. Again, Lorraine wanted it to be kept there in the museum, which, I mean, how crazy can this get? Now, a comedian, Matt Rife, bought or is leased, or I can't get the true story, but he now owns that museum with all the artifacts, demonic artifacts, including Annabelle, and including these mirrors that some people believe are portals to the netherworld. So that's what's going on. It's, again, I think it was $1 million or $2 million that Matt Rife paid to have possession of these artifacts from the Monroe Occult Museum. So it can't get any weirder than that. Nobody seems to be taking this thing seriously. And, I don't know. I mean, I just think that the people may get hurt. So I'm concerned, but I don't know. I mean, my voice doesn't seem to be being heard. So I don't know. But I just think that there's danger out there.
Okay. Well, I think Barbara's built up a terrific following, and you are being heard. Hopefully, it's just by the people you want to hear you. But we'll see what happens.
Mhm.
But Max, you probably need to get back to writing on your next book.
Mhm.
Is there, do you want to plug your website and where to find your books? Then we can call it an evening, and you can get
Yeah.
back to writing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I think we covered a lot of the good bases. And first of all, I want to thank you for your academic research. A lot of these podcasters that I talk to don't do that. I mean, you do your due diligence, you do your homework, and I appreciate that. And I mean, it comes through. So thank you so much for that. I
Thank you.
appreciate the opportunity. This is what we've been talking for a while, and if anybody's interested in purchasing any of my books or in reading about my background, my website is www.maximfurek.com, and you could just read about me. And you could, if you want to autograph copies of any of my books, there's a way to contact me through the website. So please feel free to do that. I would also say this too: if anybody is so kind as to purchase any of my books, please leave a review on Amazon. It's what us authors need. It's what we typically don't get, but that's what we need to go and just do something to that crazy algorithm, whatever that is. I don't know how that works, but anyway, the more likes or whatever dislikes, the more people say something, it just seems to be better promoted through Amazon so that more it could reach more readers. So that's what we do that. And unfortunately, that's just the hardcore side of the business. I mean, we're looking for those reviews, and they're kind of hard to find. I mean, a lot of people just read the book, they enjoy the book, but they don't like to write a review. So whatever that is, but and like I said, the current book, and I'll be talking with Barbara on that on Monday, July the 13th, and that'll be on Paranormal Apocalypse. Is this how it ends? And with this book, I mean, continuing with my Christian biblical, narrative, I'm taking a look at the end times, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and what's going to happen. And a lot of people think they know what's going to happen, and a lot of people think we're going to suffer before we die. So we don't know, but it's another unknown. But we can get through this together, and we will. So, Mark, thank you so much. And I'm glad that you're safe from all the floods. I was worried about you.
Yeah. Thank you. Quite a few people were concerned. What it was bad, and it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, you're our brother. We care. So.
Thank you. Just it was bad enough that 9 people died down the street from me, but
dear God. Yeah.
But I'm making some changes to recover from a natural disaster. So it's things. I'm okay. But thanks, Max. We're gonna have to. We'll be talking throughout the year.
Okay. I meant to call you and wish you not only a happy New Year, but a happy birthday. So that was just a couple of days ago, I guess. So happy birthday.
Thank you for that as well.
Yeah, I hope it was a good one. I hope you had a good day of celebration. So
let's hope 59's a much better year than 58.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Max. And we'll Barbara's gonna see everyone, I think, next Monday, and we have a great vampire show coming up last Tuesday of the month. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and we will be talking soon.